Sometimes the biggest warnings about where we're headed come from looking back. And today, we're diving into a story from Korea's Joseon Dynasty. It's an era that was just torn apart by political division, and believe me, it holds a pretty chilling lesson for all of us.
Wow, that is a heavy statement to make about a dynasty that lasted for over 500 years, right? But it really gets to the heart of the matter. From the very beginning, the Joseon Dynasty was built on a foundation of political chaos and power grabs, and that set a really dangerous stage for everything that came after.
All right, so to really get the world our main character lived in, we've got to understand just how messy the politics were back then.
So right from the get-go, the whole dynasty was just plagued by infighting. I mean, you had a rebellion led by Yi Bangwon that literally forced the first king off the throne. Talk about a bad start. And it gets crazier. Some of the early rulers actually destroyed historical records just so they could rewrite the past to make themselves look better. So politics, yeah, it stopped being about what was good for the country and became all about who could grab the most power for themselves.
And this timeline, man, it just lays out the brutal reality of the time. Just look how close those dates are. We're talking about 4 brutal political purges in less than 50 years. And these weren't just political arguments, These were violent, bloody takeovers where one group, the Saruman scholars, were systematically hunted down by the people in charge.
So who were these factions exactly? Well, think of it like this. On one side, you had the Hunggu. They were the old guard, the establishment, the ones holding all the power and loving it. And then you had the Sarem. They were the new kids on the block, a bunch of scholars who wanted to reform everything based on their strict Confucian ideals. This clash, this battle between the old and the new, it fueled the fire of conflict for literally generations.
And all of this brings us to a really important term, Bang Dung Jengchi. Now, it translates to factional politics, but honestly, it's so much more than that. It basically became the word for the political rot of the entire dynasty. It described a system where your loyalty was to your party, your faction, and your own personal gain, and the good of the nation, well, that came in a distant second if it came in at all.
But, history isn't just about big factions and dates on a timeline. It's about real people trying to live through it all. So let's zoom in a bit and meet one guy who had to navigate this absolute mess.
And here it is, our main character, Byun Yunjong. His timing was, well, let's just say he was born right smack in the middle of all these purges and this rising tide of factionalism. He got a front row seat to see just how badly this kind of division could tear a country apart.
And you can tell a lot about a person by what they value. The name he gave his personal study was Gwandik, which means to examine virtue. Think about that. In a world that was absolutely obsessed with power, this guy was focused on integrity and self-reflection. That one little detail, it just speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Okay, so let's dig a little deeper into the principles that guided this guy through all the madness.
So from the time he was a kid, Yunjong was just all about learning, especially history. At one point, people were telling him, hey, for your family's sake, you should take the military exam. But he refused. He was dead set on being a scholar. And his whole philosophy was about self-reflection. If something went wrong, you look inside yourself first, always trying to be better.
And this wasn't just him thinking highly of himself. Get this. His teacher was a guy named Jang Chol, who was one of the most famous and powerful politicians of the entire era. And for that guy to say, he is someone who will study together with me, I mean, that's like the ultimate compliment. He wasn't just seeing a student, he was seeing an equal.
And Yunjong wasn't shy about using that sharp mind of his either. He actually wrote satirical poems calling out the political craziness around him. This one line here is a really clever jab at his own teacher, Jang Chol, whose pen name had the character for river in it. Yunjong was basically saying that powerful guys like him were making everyone's vision dense, blinding them with anger. To say that back then, especially about your powerful teacher, that took some serious guts.
Okay, so this brings us back to the consequences. What was the real cost of all this division that Yunjong was so bravely calling out? What was the ultimate price?
And here's the really tragic irony. The Saryum, the reformers who'd been attacked and purged for so long, once they finally got into power, they did the exact same thing. They started fighting among themselves about how fast reform should happen, who should be in charge, and they split right down the middle. You got to Dongin, the Easterners, and the Soin, the Westerners. The whole vicious cycle just started all over again, but this time it was even worse.
And this is where it all comes crashing down. While all the politicians in Joseon were busy with their petty power struggles, they completely missed what was happening in the rest of the world. They were blind. They stubbornly stuck with the fading Ming dynasty instead of dealing with the rising Qing dynasty, all because of factional pride, not smart foreign policy. And that single, terrible decision, it led directly to brutal invasions and some of the worst suffering the Korean people have ever known.
I mean, this quote from the source material just nails it. The country was brought to its knees, not just by an enemy army, but by its own rot from the inside out. It's what happens when you put your party and your personal interests ahead of your country. It's history screaming a warning at us about what happens when we let division win.
And that warning, well, it brings this whole story right into our modern world.
Think about it. When you see how divided our own societies are today, with everyone in their own little echo chambers online, with partisan news making us hate the other side, you got to ask yourself, is this really just a story about the past?
The challenges are absolutely timeless. That struggle to hold on to your principles, to put the greater good first when everyone around you is picking a side, it's just as real today as it was back then. This isn't just some old story, it's a mirror.
So what do? What's the way out of this? Well, the story of Yunjong gives us a clue. It's about people. People with a strong will. People who can see things clearly and make the right call. People who put justice above what's easy for them or their family or their team.
And that's really the question for all of us, isn't it? As we try to make our way through our own complicated, divided times, this story from hundreds of years ago forces us to look in that mirror. And we have to ask, are we choosing the right path? Are we really being guided by what's right? Or are we just being swayed by our own biases and self-interest?